The Wind in the Willows. Please like, share, and subscribe. Chapter 10. Toad Learns the Worst. Rat grabbed Toad and hauled him out of the river. "Oh, Ratty," Toad cried. "I've been through so much since I saw you last. I got through it all with courage and intelligence. Just wait until you hear." "Toad," said Rat, "you go upstairs right now and take off that old cotton rag that looks as if it once belonged to some washerwoman. Wash yourself and put on some of my clothes. Now stop swaggering and arguing and go." When Toad had changed, he joined Rat for lunch. While they ate, Toad told Rat about his adventures, making himself sound like a hero and making all the worst parts sound fun and exciting. When he was finally finished, Rat was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Now, Toady, I don't want to make you feel bad, but seriously, don't you see what an idiot you've been making of yourself? You're telling me you've been handcuffed, imprisoned, starved, chased, terrified out of your life, insulted, and thrown into the water. Where's the fun in that? And all because you had to go steal a motor car. You know you've never had anything but trouble from motor cars from the moment you first saw one. It's one thing to drive them, fine, but why do you have to steal them?" When Rat had finished, Toad sighed and said, "You're right, Ratty. How smart you always are. Yes, I've been an idiot, I can see that. But now I'm going to be a good Toad. We'll have a quiet chat, and then I'm going to walk down to Toad Hall and settle back in. I've had enough of adventures. I just want to live a quiet life at home." "Walk down to Toad Hall?" cried Rat. "What are you talking about? Are you telling me you haven't heard?" "Heard what?" said Toad, turning pale. "Are you telling me," shouted Rat, "that you haven't heard about the Stoats and the Weasels?" "What, the Wild Wooders?" cried Toad, trembling. "And how they've taken over Toad Hall," continued Rat. Toad began to cry. "When you were away," Rat said, trying to be polite about Toad being in jail, "well, everyone was talking about it, not only along the river, but even in the Wild Wood. The Wild Wood animals said it served you right and that you would never come back again. Never, never." Toad just nodded. "But Mole and Badger," Rat went on, "they kept saying that you would come back again soon. They didn't know exactly how, but somehow." Toad began to sit up in his chair and smile a little. "So they moved their things to Toad Hall," Rat told him, "and planned to stay there and have it all ready for you when you came back. They didn't guess what was going to happen, but they were suspicious. Now, I come to the worst part of my story. One dark night, when it was raining cats and dogs, a band of weasels, armed to the teeth, crept up to the front entrance of Toad Hall. At the same time, some ferrets got into the backyard and offices, and some stoats took over the greenhouse." Toad looked shocked. "But there was more," Rat went on. "Mole and Badger were sitting by the fire in the living room when those bloodthirsty villains broke down the doors and rushed in upon them from every side. Badger and Mole fought as hard as they could, but what was the use? They were taken by surprise, and what can two animals do against hundreds? The stoats and weasels and ferrets beat them up and threw them out into the cold rain, and the Wild Wooders have been living in Toad Hall ever since," finished Rat. "They lie in bed half the day and make a mess and eat your food and make bad jokes about you, and they're telling everybody that they've come to stay for good." "Oh, have they?" said Toad, getting up. "I'll see about that." He marched down the road, talking angrily to himself until he got near his front gate. But there was a ferret guarding the gate, and he would not let Toad pass. He went back and told Rat. "What did I tell you?" said Rat. "It's no good. They have guards everywhere. You'll just have to wait." But Toad was not ready to give up. He got out the boat and rowed up the river to Toad Hall. When he saw his old home, he slowed down to look around. Everything seemed quiet. The house looked the same as always, as if it were waiting for him to come back. Quietly, he paddled closer. He was just passing under the bridge when crash! A huge stone dropped from above, smashed through the bottom of the boat. The boat sank, and Toad splashed around in the deep water. Looking up, he saw two stoats leaning over the bridge, laughing at him. Toad swam to shore and went back to tell Rat what had happened. "Well, what did I tell you?" asked Rat. "And now look what you've done. Ruined my boat and that nice suit of clothes I lent you. Really, Toad." Toad knew he'd been bad. He apologized to Rat for losing his boat and spoiling his clothes, and he promised to listen to Rat and not do anything else unless Rat told him to. "All right," said Rat. "Sit down and have some supper. Mole and Badger will be here soon, and we'll talk about what to do." "Oh yes, Mole and Badger," said Toad. "I almost forgot about them. What happened to them?" "Nice of you to ask," said Rat. "While you were riding around the country in expensive motor cars, those two poor animals have been camping out, watching over your house, keeping an eye on the stoats and weasels, and planning how to get your property back for you. You don't deserve to have such true and loyal friends, Toad. Someday, when it's too late, you'll be sorry you didn't appreciate them while you had them." "I am an ungrateful Toad, I know," sobbed Toad. "Let me go out and find them. I'll go out into the cold, dark night and— Hold on! Didn't I just hear the clink of dishes on a tray? Supper's here. Come on, Ratty." Rat remembered that poor Toad had been eating prison food for a long time, so he followed him to the table. They had just finished their meal when there was a heavy knock on the door. When Rat opened it, in walked Mr. Badger. He looked as if he hadn't been home in a long time. His shoes were muddy and his clothes were wrinkled. He came up to Toad, shook his paw, and said, "Welcome home, Toad." "Oh, what am I saying? Home, ha! This is a terrible homecoming. Poor Toad." Then he sat down to eat. Soon there was another knock. This time it was Mole, who also looked very shabby. "Hooray! Here's old Toad!" cried Mole, beaming. "We never dreamed you would turn up so soon. You must have escaped, you smart Toad." Rat grabbed Mole's elbow, but it was too late. Toad was already puffing up with pride. "Smart? Me? Oh, no," he said. "I'm not really smart. I just broke out of the strongest prison in England, that's all, and captured a train and escaped on it, that's all, and disguised myself and went around fooling everybody, that's all. Oh, no, I'm just silly old Toad. I'll tell you one or two of my little adventures, Mole, and you can judge for yourself." "Well, well," said Mole. "Why don't you talk while I eat? I haven't had a bite since breakfast." "Tell us how things look at Toad Hall," Rat said quickly to Mole, "and what you think we should do now that Toad is back." "It's a bad situation," Mole said gloomily, "and I don't know what to do. Badger and I keep walking around the house, and the weasels and stoats just laugh at us." "Well," said Rat, "I've been thinking about it, and I think Toad should—" "No," cried Mole, "you're wrong. He should—" "I won't," shouted Toad. "It's my house, and I'll decide." By this time they were all talking at once. Then Badger spoke up. "Be quiet, all of you." They all fell silent. "Toad," he said severely, "you bad little animal. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? What do you think your father, my old friend, would have said if he knew what you'd been up to?" Toad began to sob. There, said Badger, more kindly. "Stop crying. I know you're going to try to be better, Toad, from now on. But what Mole said is true. The stoats are on guard." "Then it's all over," sobbed Toad. "I'll never see my dear Toad Hall again." "Cheer up, Toady," said Badger. "I haven't said my last word yet. Now I'm going to tell you a secret." Toad sat up and dried his eyes. He loved secrets. "There's an underground passage," said Badger, "that leads from the river bank right up into the middle of Toad Hall." "Oh, come on, Badger," said Toady. "I know every inch of Toad Hall, inside and out. There's no such thing." "My young friend," said Badger, "your father was a friend of mine, and he told me things he wouldn't have dreamed of telling you. He discovered that passage, and he thought it might come in handy some day in case of trouble or danger. So he showed it to me. 'Don't tell my son about it,' he said. 'He's a good boy, but he can't keep a secret. If he's ever in real trouble, you may tell him.'" Toad looked surprised. Then he smiled sheepishly. "Well, well," he said, "I guess father was right. I do like to talk and tell secrets. Anyway, Badger, how will this passage of yours help us?" "There's going to be a big dinner party at Toad Hall tomorrow night," Badger told him. "It's the Chief Weasel's birthday, I believe, and all the weasels will be gathered together in the dining hall, eating and drinking and laughing and carrying on." "But the guards will be posted as usual," said Rat. "Exactly," said Badger. "That is my point. The weasels will trust in their guards, and that is where the passage comes in. It leads right into the pantry next to the dining hall." "Aha! That squeaky board in the pantry," said Toad. "Now I understand it." "We shall creep out quietly into the pantry," cried Mole. "With big sticks," shouted Rat. "And rush in upon them," said Badger. "And whack them and send them on their way," cried Toad happily. "Well then," said Badger, "our plan is settled. It's getting late. We'll make the rest of our plans tomorrow morning." The next day, Toad came down to breakfast late, just as Mole came back from a secret errand. "We've been having such fun," Mole told the others. "I've been teasing the stoats." "I hope you've been careful, Mole," said Rat. "Oh, yes," said Mole. "I got the idea when I found that old washerwoman dress Toad came home in yesterday, hanging out to dry. I put it on and went to Toad Hall. The guards were on the lookout, of course. 'Good morning, gentlemen,' I said. 'Want any washing done today?' They looked at me and said, 'Go away, washerwoman. We don't do any washing on duty.'" "Or any other time?" I asked. "Ha, ha, ha. Wasn't I funny, Toad?" "Silly animal," said Toad. He was jealous to tell the truth. He wished he'd thought of doing that. "The sergeant told me to run away," said Mole. And I said, "Run away? It won't be me running away pretty soon." "Oh, Mole, how could you?" said Rat. Badger put down the newspaper. "I could see them looking at one another," Mole went on, "and the sergeant said to them, 'Never mind her. She doesn't know what she's talking about.'" "Oh, don't I?" said I. "Well, let me tell you this. My daughter, she cleans for Mr. Badger, and she heard that 100 bloodthirsty badgers are going to attack Toad Hall this very night from the fields. 6 boatloads of rats will come up the river and land in the garden, and a gang of toads will come through the orchard. You'd better get out of here while you have a chance." Then I pretended to run away, but I came back and spied on them. They were all so nervous. They were running around and giving orders to one another and acting all confused. I heard them saying to one another, "That's just like the weasels. They'll be having a good time while we ferrets and stoats have to stay out here on guard and get attacked by badgers." "Oh, you idiot, Mole!" cried Toad. "You spoiled everything." "Mole," said Badger quietly, "I think you have more sense in your little finger than some animals have in their whole fat bodies. You've done a great job. Good Mole. Smart Mole." Now Toad was wild with jealousy, especially since he couldn't understand what Mole had done that was so smart. But before he could say anything, Badger said it was time for lunch. After they ate, Badger suggested a nap since they were going to have a busy night, and he headed for his armchair. Rat was too nervous to sleep, so he paced around, pretending to prepare for their surprise attack. Mole, maybe to make up with Toad, asked to hear all about Toad's adventures. So Toad spent a very pleasant afternoon boasting about all he'd done since he'd last seen Mole. And we'll read the next chapter next time. Till then, as Tigger says, ta-ta for now. Love you guys. Bye-bye.